But what do you say, Colonel Mittens? So, what I'm doing here is, first of all, enjoying the sunlight, and second of all, and of course the sun's coming from that way, I have to maintain poor video quality, getting this ready for actual firing at full draw. And what I did last night and this morning, I sinew wrapped mid limbs, then right here, symmetrical, same here and here. I'm going to put a sinew wrap right there, just to keep the backing laid down. So it should be perfectly safe. Redid this, thicker ropage, added fur for mojo, and turns out our friend Philip King, he sent 4 bodkins to me. Check these things out. Aren't those nice? Ooh. So it's gonna raise the mass of this way over 1,000 grains, probably 1,100 at least. And so you can also see I done decorated this, made it rakish. I'm thinking, I'm doing that again, sorry, that an advantage of this, definitely over steel prodded crossbows, rate of fire. This is darn near the same as a longbow. Now let's get into this. A strong person, a Joe Gibbs, can definitely fire this bow. I think he can darn near like draw a 200-pound bow. But what is the advantage of this over a longbow? Longbow would have a greater rate of fire, but not by that much. This is quick. I don't need to use a windlass or any other mechanical means of cocking it because I'm relying on a long power stroke to maximize performance. And these 1,000 grain bolts can go well over 300 yards. That's easy. This thing is a powerhouse. So what's the advantage of this? One is that this could be part, let me put this back up here, part of a system. Think of this. It's not just the crossbow and the bolts, but you can also add a shield to it. I could, unlike a longbowman, I can be down here, take that shield that I just carried on my back into an open field and put the shield in front of me with a slit or something in it, and so I'm protected and I can still cock this from the ground. That's no problem. And so as a system, I know I'm going to be trolling people. This is going to make people mad. This would be superior to a bow just because you've got cover. You don't need to rely on trees. You can have that shield that you packed in on your back and just have a thin slit in it. It could make this, you know, a tremendous advantage as far as an open field type of a battle. Now what I'm doing right now, let's get into this. These are oak, and these take almost no time to make. I took, excuse me, Tiki. I took this, and I know it's not a primitive tool, but I took my table saw, stuck this between the blade and the fence, getting basically the dimension of the diameter through there, and just ripped an oak board. These are oak, these are heavy. Then turn it sideways and then ripped it, so now I've got a square. And once I get my squares set, then all I need to do is just cock that blade at a 45-degree angle, get it set, and turn this into an octagon. So now I've got an octagon. Then I just took sanding device, orbital disc sander, again not a primitive instrument, and just knocked those ridges off. If you were to look at this closely, it's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be perfect. It can have a non-perfectly circular cross-section and still be effective, very effective. Now I've got these, I cut them down to length. It took me no time to make a whole bunch of shafts, heavy oak. Now these actually utilize, they don't use feathers for fletching, they use thin pieces of wood. In this case I use cedar. You can see the grain pattern. I could have had it so the grain runs like this to make them stronger, but these are actually strong enough. I can shoot these things with just, you know, bad grain, growth rings running just stacked on top of each other in this fashion, and they will work. I can just take some hide glue or some other glue, smear it over there, smear some glue on the end, on the edges, you know, and I'm good to go. Now, the one thing for accuracy is you do need to make sure, oh, I keep kicking this thing, that they are aligned perfectly. And for that, I have a jig that I made. You can see a number 4 shaft. It lays on this board. Then these are the squares right here that I cut for the shafts, but I didn't put the octagons in them, and just did it so, you know, there's a nice loose fit in there. Rubber banded down, boom. And I've got these, and this took a bit of fine tuning to get these the right thickness for the shaft and for the thickness of the vanes. So then this is going to be that center one. They only have 3. There's 2 laying flat and then a vertical one. There's only 3 of these things on the arrow. Enough. They work in XYZ plane, the whole 9 yards. And all I did was put glue on the edge and then laid it on this and then stuck it to the shaft. And these little stop blocks, providing that the shaft is at the end here, good enough. I should have been a little more careful, but it's good enough. It's off 1/8 of an inch. Put that center one on, this one, and then when that's dry I can turn it 90 degrees and then put those flat ones on there, and they will be perfectly aligned. There's not going to be like one weird spiral in one of them that's going to throw the accuracy off. And so if I had more of these jigs I could do it faster, but I can sit here and think about things as I'm just gluing these things on. Then I'm going to go and round the edges. I don't round the edges until they're glued on. I just have more control if they're on something. No big deal. These are actually balsa wood, but I went with cedar. I'm not, oh, I hear the turkeys. I'm not too concerned with making them as light as possible. In this case with this crossbow, I want to make them heavy. And so that is that. I would like to have 10 of these things so I can actually show that I can fire 10 a minute. But I'm going to have 4, and you'll see the next time I do a video I'm going to have all these things done. I'm going to have 4 bolts and set up a target. I don't know, maybe 30 yards, maybe 40 yards, maybe 25. I don't know, but it's going to be substantial. I want to, with the full draw and doing it quickly, but not so quickly I screw up and injure anything myself. Want to show the penetration of these things on some plywood. Hopefully I've got, I don't know, a 1/2 inch plywood, I don't know, steel, I don't know, but it's going to be pretty impressive. I should actually, if I wanted to be complete, make a shield, and that shield should not be flat, it should be at an angle. For one reason, if there is a longbowman firing at me, hitting the shield, it would glance off. You know, obviously, the force of an arrow hitting perpendicular, it's going to have more of a potential for penetration than if it's an angle, then sliding off. And so that is it. I want you to think about the history of longbow and crossbow, and also, you know, who knows? Things to think about. Last mention, there was a fellow in the last video where I showed me shooting this thing, mentioned that he went to the Bluegrass Museum or Bluegrass Center in Knoxville, Tennessee, and saw that the mountain people, I don't use the word hillbilly, I think that's kind of a slam, they're mountain folk. The mountain people, they couldn't afford to use firearms, they used crossbows. Think about that. Well, that is all. I think I'm going to throw some seeds out here for these guys. Let's take a look out here. Yep, they see me. Okay. Well, you have a good one.